Mayor of Inbound here, or whatever my title is today, founder OrangeSuit LLC. This is the Orange Network, one source of truth for your one source of truth. You guessed it. We've got a cool guest today. We're going to be talking music. We've got another RP strategist lined up. He is the one and only. I heard one time that he invented music. He's that kind of guy. So he's really smart when it comes to RevOps. Let's go ahead and not waste anybody's time with boring monologues and intros. Let's bring our guest on right away. How the hell are you, Christian Colegrove?
What's going on, buddy? How are you? Good to
I'm
see you.
good. This suit is a little warm under all the stage lights, but I'm making it.
I can imagine it's pretty hot up in my office. I've got the AC cranking right now in Boston. So,
How would you know how hot it is in your office if you're currently backstage at a
well,
music venue? Is that your office? You have
uh,
drums, you've got sound panels, you've got all kind of stuff.
absolutely. I've got all my guitars back, some guitars back here. I've got a piano and more guitars downstairs as well. This is what happens when you live alone. You just accumulate more gear and can put it wherever you want. It's pretty
Yeah,
nice.
I feel the same way. I wish I have two guitars. They're both back here, but we're not here to talk all music. Let's hear about you, man. Where are you? Who are you? What do you do aside from this? What the question I want viewers to answer is, should we care about this guy talking for the rest of the show or not? So challenge to you is make them care.
That's up to y'all to decide. I think I'll talk about myself real quick, and you can decide for yourself by the end of my little
I'm on your
monologue.
side. I love you, dude.
Um,
You're great.
Oh, love you too, buddy. You're fantastic. So, yeah, my name is Christian Colegrove, Revenue Operations Strategist at RevPartners. Been here since October of 2023. Yeah, it's 2024 now, right? That's the year we're in. And yeah, pretty much just have experience. My experience goes back to administration systems, but it slowly went into procurement management, then into sales and the client success, and found my love for HubSpot through sales and client success, and found RevPartners through that journey, and now I'm here. But yeah, I really enjoy process enhancement. I enjoy fixing, really just providing solutions to problems. That's the thing that kind of is like always and with me in any career is I've done all the things wrong. Like, I love these little things here. But no, really anything that I've done has always had to do with trouble problem solving. That's what I love. So to be able to do that full time and to be able to provide really actionable insights and help people who I feel are a lot smarter than me solve problems
I feel like that
is
every day.
so cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm working with some of the smartest people in and outside of RevPartners. And they're looking to me to help them solve some of their most complex problems. And I think that's really cool to be able to be that outside eye, looking in not only from 1,000 yards, but also looking in from a microscopic view as well.
Less bias, more ability to make recommendations that aren't. Yeah, I love the dynamic. RP's done a great job with that, and you've got a solution that you're going to show us today. Correct? Something specific.
Yeah, man.
But before we do that, the music thing is important because we're not just good at business, but there's this obsessive component with RP that I think you can speak into, and I think some of that is everyone that I've talked to from RP is obsessive or very data driven outside of B2B tech HubSpot. And I think you could probably
Yes.
speak for hours about that with music, but just give like a little bit. I know that you were talking about a track that you built. You do some music production, and I dabble
Yeah.
in that. I'll have a one GarageBand track and two things. But you, how many tracks did you have in this song you're editing? Was it over 85?
It was 85 tracks. Yeah.
That's just see somebody like me wouldn't understand that. The point I'm trying to make to the audience is this dude's obsessed with data, progress, and detail, and I think we're going to see that here in a minute with his presentation, which we'll get into
For sure.
right now after I hit this cool little transition thing. This is Christian's clip. It's not really a clip, it's a prezi, but we'll do it anyway. Would have been cooler on a Friday if that was bring your own beer, but I digress. Christian, let me add this to the stage and set you up, man. My job is to make you look
Sweet.
smart, and it's the easiest job in the world. Talk, and I'll shut up.
Beautiful. I also wish we didn't bring our own beer, but we did bring our own beards, Rob. And that's important as
Mine
well.
grows in very much like Joe Dirt when he says it just grows in bad looking, so I'm struggling. But
Right on, man. All right. So time to talk about why I love process. What I love doing at RevPartners is solving complex issues and really just training people on a new process and helping them see the metrics that they want to see. And one of my clients was having a really hard time with getting any insight into their client onboarding. They could not see how long it was taking to onboard a client. They couldn't see why clients were potentially not finishing their onboarding, or maybe if the onboarding was causing problems early on in their relationship, right? This company deals with onboarding a lot of people and a lot of different clients, and they sometimes get too lost in just moving quickly than focusing an extra 5 minutes and getting a lot more data out of that, right? So that was the big thing that we had to figure out. So as we do in RevPartners, we talk about a problem statement leading to what is the problem that we need to solve here. And then usually after the problem statement, we will run a discovery and figure out, okay, what really is going on inside there? So you're having this problem. Let's map out what that problem is and find where the gaps are, and then create an end state out of those gaps to then create actionable insights and metrics and a solution that's going to work for them, right? So again, our RevOps pillars are to create efficiency, increase visibility, and have your CRM become a source of truth. You pay a lot of money to have the CRM, so might as well actually use it as effectively as possible. Now, the problem statement. What was wrong? Leadership had little to no insight into the time it took to onboard clients. The CS and implementation teams were constantly missing necessary steps to gather the right data. And there really wasn't any insight into some of the properties weren't being filled out. They were being canceled. They were just stuck in kind of a stage for 100 days for some weird reason and no rhyme or reason why.
I find this is
So,
difficult real quick
yeah.
just because this is my functionality. Leadership had little to no insight into the time it took to onboard clients. How is this possible? Did they not have time track? Was this disparate systems? Was this multiple sources of tracking
Well,
time? Or
it's the way they were using the ticket pipeline, right? Ticket pipelines, geo pipelines, life cycle stages, all these things have to be very linear to actually follow through a specific timeline, right? Where we have they entered this stage, but the problem was they were moving back a stage occasionally, they were skipping stages. So we didn't really
yeah,
know when they were actually in a stage or not. We didn't know how long they were spending in a specific stage. And I'll show you the stages in a moment of what that means. But they also just were leaving things in stages, forgetting to mark them as complete, or
yep, okay, that's
there was
helpful.
no reminders to move them forward or anything like that. So just to do a little pre-metrics overview, I know I said I was going to talk about metrics later, but I want to give you guys some
More
insight
metrics,
here
mo better. I
to
think Big Daddy
start.
Kane said that at one point. Go ahead.
So pretty much the average time to close, I blocked the reps' names out and everything else, but the average time to close was between 120 to 140 days, depending on the rep. Tickets were staying in like the new pipeline for an average of 50 days, and tickets weren't being accurately moved across stances, just like I was talking about the problem statement. Now, we established during our discovery call that the new status shouldn't be in there for a maximum of one business day, right? And then it should immediately be moved to schedule and kickoff, right? So last year, this is average times from financial year 23, we're seeing like 50 plus days in the new setting. And I'm like, why is that a thing? And then they've only spent like 3.2 days in scheduling kickoff on average, and then kickoff scheduled for 4.6 hours, and then set up for 45 days. And it's just like all over the place. I'm like, what are you doing?
Does this,
So,
when you do this, because you can recall, you could name the new something different, and and that would make.
you can,
But does this involve like nomenclature or term standardization so that people understand? Okay, average time in new is just it means
new just
this.
means like the ticket's new. Nobody's really touched it. It
50
needs
days
to
is
be,
insane. That's way too. Yeah.
it's,
Okay.
it's a
So
long time and new. Yeah.
yes. Okay. This is
And if
helpful to
we're
me
slow
because
to,
things mean different things to different partners. To us means three different
yes.
things here, right? So new and average time and setup launch. Is there a way to build that definition in for new reps? And if I'm derailing, you tell me that you'll get to that.
I will actually get to that because we, in our discovery session, defined what it was to have a new setting or anything like that. So, Rob, what I want you to do really quickly before we move on to the presentation, let's talk about the map. And if, yeah, oh, that is beautiful. Great transition, Rob. So, as you can see, this is a giant Miro map of all the process that we built. right? And the first step of that process is to figure out what's the process that is supposed to happen, right? And as you can see, it's saying, okay, so the deal is won, right? Congrats to our client. They've won a deal, they've made some money, they are now onboarding a new client who's super excited about their product. What happens next? They had like workflows assigning who the CSM is going to be, who the implementation specialist is going to be. And the CSM is supposed to respond. And for those that don't know, CSM is client success manager. CSM is supposed to respond in 4 hours to invite this client to a kickoff call after sales sends that email off. So the initial thing, what was happening is because it's a cross object functionality where the sales rep is closing the deal out and then they're not involved in the ticket at all. Now they are, and I'll get to that. But we're not getting any of those emails that sales sent introducing the CSM to the client, and it's not like really moving across the object too well. So I made sure to mark, okay, they should reply to this email. Let me start figuring out a way to get sales to send that email and to make sure that another task gets assigned to the CSM once sales has sent that email. So we look at the definitions here, right? We look at new, scheduling, scheduled.
I was just
Okay, so
jumping ahead,
new,
but I was right on it, man. I'm getting it.
you've got the definitions right here, my man. So we defined what this means to them, right? Because again, everybody has a different definition. RevOps isn't just this cookie cutter formula for success. It transcends with new could mean something completely different, like you said, Rob. So new in this case is they are sending a kickoff email with an invite link, and what's supposed to happen is it's supposed to move to scheduling once that's done. And Rob, as you and I saw, 56 days does not sound like an immediate move from new to scheduling. Right?
Something was off.
Something was awry. Something was awry. So I was like, all right, that's odd. Let's figure that out. And then in scheduling, they have some follow-ups and just try to get the client on, right? Sometimes clients are busy, especially with their specific niche. It takes a little bit of nudging to get them onboarded sometimes. And just now we're able to track like how many times did they actually follow up, because now we build a follow-up workflow, right? And then once it's scheduled, they haven't attended yet, but the meeting's scheduled. So at least we can see when it's scheduled. We can then track the activity, see if it's been rescheduled, canceled, or whatever. But at the very least, the client scheduled the pre-launch call, which is great. And that would move to then scheduled.
The visual component of this is fantastic, especially because I know people might be, if I'm listening to a podcast or YouTube, sometimes I'll just listen, and this is hard. This needs to really be seen. There's a whole bunch of new stuff added in and going. I feel like it's fair to assume that this was what was needed right now. However, whenever you have this kind of foundation in place that's fixing, and I can't wait for the reveal on how much time this cut off here in a minute. But is something commonplace also that RP can think about is like, what about contingency plans for high and low seasonal activity? What about people with PTO? Like, how do you start routing and creating some of those like added layers once this has been set up, implemented, and adopted? Is that something you guys is that something that you as a strategist typically can speak into, like next steps in the infrastructure?
Absolutely. There's no one size fits all to an implementation, right? And we've already actually revamped a couple of different things within this solution as it is. For example, some implementations do get canceled or postponed. Postponed is the perfect one. I had my contact reach out to me probably about a month ago. She said it's summertime and our clients typically they're not going to really do an implementation until the fall. And there's no way to track and remove in reports if an implementation has been postponed. And I said, that makes sense. So we created a solution to say, okay, if an implementation is postponed, I revamped the documentation to say, add this property to say postponed. And I showed my client how to remove postponed from her reports.
Right.
Just so she could see what was actually happening in real time rather than things that like are messing up the numbers and also creating a false narrative that her employees aren't doing their job.
We say that in CrossFit
right?
is the numbers don't matter as long as you know what they are and they're improving, right? It's the accurate data is really the foundation. So whether it's 50 days or 2 or 100, as long as you know what that number actually is and can speak into it, that's where some of the improvements happen. It sounds like
As
that's
long
what
as you can
did.
speak into the data.
Yep.
Yeah. And it goes back to me talking about how the ticket is a linear process. this onboarding pipeline, it's a pipeline. It's not a back and forth, right? Because her original suggestion was, oh, why don't we create a stage for implementation postponed? And I'm like, that would then move. Cool. So thank you, Rob. I'll talk about that in a minute. But just one of the last things is if it's not moving linearly, then we're not getting accurate data. So I created a property that they update that then removes it from reports instead of the linear. Again, we can see that there was a lot of discussion going on when it comes to how we define each of these stages and what it means. So I'm going to go and skip ahead a bit if you're cool with that, Rob.
I'm cool with it. Would this be a good time to thank our sponsor and have a quick break for some water or whatnot?
Yeah.
We are sponsored by RP, which is me. and the OrangeSuit guy. We're going to show this quick clip, and then we're going to hop back into it. This one goes out to Matt Furman.
In HubSpot. Really? You could do that for me?
Who are you talking to?
It's Matt from RevPartners.
Matt from RevPartners at 3 a.m? Who is this? Who is this?
Hello, Matt from RevPartners.
What are you selling, Matt from RevPartners?
RevOps is a service. We set up your HubSpot for you.
He sounds delightful.
They're the best, so yeah, Matt.
Matt from RevPartners is, my kids literally ask if they can talk to him because they think he's famous. Let's continue.
Forgot about that ad.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's great.
I figured we could use
That's
it for
great.
this. Let's go ahead, man. I wanted to derail you a little bit. Now we're back on track. I had some water.
Oh, God.
Let's add this. Is it the screen, the map, or the presentation?
Yeah, it's the map. We're going back to the map. Great. I'm not going to bore you guys with all the definitions because obviously it's very different for everybody. But as you can see, we went through this giant mapping session of being like, what the heck does all of this mean? So that I can then understand how to fix it. So then we went through a second iteration. We said, okay, let's build out a general process and mark up everything. Make it as messy as possible with a bunch of sticky notes, mark it, notes, what are the next steps? And we had pretty much, you can see like C and K, right? Me and my client just adding comment after comment on each stage to say, okay, what is this process flow going to look like? So this was like version 2 of the process where there's still a lot to work on, but what do we do next? So you can see it's not super detailed. It's just saying, okay, here's what some of the workflows are going to look like. Here's what the follow-ups are and the days between the follow-ups. And you can see like caller email, great. If we can automate the emailing, then escalate to AE if needed. What happens if they never respond? So it's just, we're asking all of these questions in the mapping session, like remotely, because remote work is great. And I'm talking to Rob, where you live in what? Where do you live again, Rob? Mississippi?
Yeah, Jackson, Mississippi, home of Kid Rock.
Love that. And I'm in Boston. My client that I was talking to is in Pittsburgh, right? And we're just doing this on our own time because she tends to work some weird hours sometimes, and I'll receive notifications the next morning I get in and I start to answer all of them. So we're able to collaborate on this map and not take up too much of each other's time from meeting, but able to comment on each stage and say, okay, is this what we want? And if not, we discuss it. And if we need to hop on another call, great. So I built this out, said, hey, review this. Let me know what your thoughts are. And then, drum roll, please, we have the new process that was finalized. Yes, I was hoping you would have it. Sweet.
Very well done.
All right.
This looks beautiful. If you're not watching, this is insane to look at, from the sticky note cluster to an entirely new process. It probably has 50 boxes, 50 steps.
A whole lot. This, by the way, this was about a month of work to get to this point. This didn't happen overnight. This was a couple weeks of planning and then building all the workflows and mapping out and then hyperlinking all the workflows to whatever session they say here and here. Pretty much how this works was like, okay, when a deal's won, it assigns the CSM, it assigns the implementation specialist. The CSM's auto-assigned as the company owner. So that's one workflow that just goes over that way. It doesn't really pertain, but it's good to just have it. And the rest goes, all right, tickets created. Then the sales rep gets assigned to that ticket, right? Because we were having issues with getting that sales to implementation specialist or sales to CS like handoff, which is it's one of our epics, by the way, RevPartners. Sales to CS handoff is more important than you think. You're getting all that data. You're making sure that sales is creating a clean handoff so that you can continue the business. Because really, the magic of sales can wear off real quick if your implementation is bad. So,
Well, with all of this too, and you've spoken about this several times, but once you make changes, anything that's going to give accurate data requires adoption, like 100% adoption, so that the
yes.
data is right. How challenging is it to make changes or change up or make additions to processes and then ensure that those new changes are adopted by the team, like the sales enablement and training component of this?
So the way, and thank you for bringing that up actually, because I failed to say that earlier. The way that I operate on this is obviously I talk high level first with heads about the solution and then talk to the department head about the details. I don't need marketing in there. I don't need sales in there just yet. But like I notify them, say, hey, here's what we're going to be doing. And then go in and talk on a granular level with the head of this department. In this case, this was customer success. The next part I do is I go, okay, so these are the problems that you're having. I'm going to come up with a general idea of what I'm thinking. And then we're going to bring this to your team to talk about any other items that they might be having issues with. So the way that I drive adoption as a strategist, and everybody has a different way of handling it, but my personal way is always making sure not only the heads of the department are heard, but that the people doing the work are heard, right? I remember when I was the one getting processes changed on me, and I was never consulted on what kind of feedback I had. And RevPartners does a great job with all of our teams on coming to us for feedback on any new process we're about to implement and saying, what are your thoughts on this? How can we make this better? You're in the trenches every day. You're the one doing the work. Where are you falling short? Is this going to make your job easier or harder? And these are all
Yep.
the things that I think about as well as someone who's been a customer success representative, right? I've been in their shoes. And I know that when you have 100 clients or however many they have a piece, it's absurd. But it's like a lot of smaller clients. It's not like super in-depth like client management like our partner experience managers do here. But the way they handle it is very much depends on a lot of different things. But I'll go back to that. I'm losing track here. I'm making sure that their people are heard, because someone that feels like they're listened to is much easier and more apt to adopt a process change if they feel like they've taken part in it. Right.
Yeah, it took you a minute to
So
get. I can't agree with that enough from both having seen and implemented stuff with sales when here and other companies. But if I don't have a voice, I'm the end user of the process anyway, not the architect. So if
absolutely.
I don't get a chance to speak into it, even to be told like, hey, you're wrong, this isn't really the point, that's fine. It's good feedback and it's helpful kind of in the loop of, now I understand the importance of it. I'd say 9 times out of 10, once that feedback loop is allowed to happen, I either understand and comply, if you will, and get on board with adopting and following the new process, as opposed to disregarding it. So this is super helpful. Well, all of this,
Absolutely.
what were you able to show with I want to know what the 50-day turnaround was on the other. Are we there yet? I feel like this is the big reveal.
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Yeah. Why don't you switch back to the presentation? We'll go back, but you guys can see how that map evolved from notes to rough to this beautiful thing with all the workflows linked. And there's a whole section of documentation and Looms. We use Loom a lot, which is just a video platform for explaining things pretty well attached to documentation. So yeah, Rob, go back to the presentation and I'll show the data that I've been able to pick up since implementing this. So metrics overview. Wow, look at that. Q1 to Q2. Check it out in terms of average time to close tickets. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Man.
Very well done. Holy moly. So
man, what do you see in the new right there, Rob?
Quick math, that's 1/7 at 28. That's a ridiculous improvement, even across each one. 30. So what type of, I'll ask this because I know they'll ask it and the audience, what type of financial impact or revenue impact did this have on the company? Can you speak into that? Is this confidential?
Necessarily speak into the, I don't really have the data to actually support the revenue impact yet because this process is still fairly new.
Right.
We implemented this process on March 1st of 2024, right? That was when everybody was trained on it. That's when they started this new process. That's when the pipeline was made into what it is today. Now, to speak into the potential revenue gain, we are still working on getting more insight into to customer success. For the longest time with this company, we've been focusing on sales, marketing, top of funnel, middle of funnel to close deals. And now we're getting more into client success and renewable income. But I will say a quicker implementation will lead to a happier client, and a more data and everything else will lead. It's a proven fact.
You could just, right, like part of that was you might not
Yeah.
have the numbers. I'm seeing Q2 2024, which was, by the way, yesterday. And so it doesn't, to me, it doesn't take somebody as bright as yourself to say 284.8 to 40.4. I wonder what kind of impact. Of course, there's a massive impact on revenue, and you're still, to your serious point, we aren't really sure what it is yet because it hasn't taken place.
It hasn't
come to
actualized
fruition
yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So
I wanted to interrupt you
dude,
with
I'm
like
pumped
the
about it.
TLDR, right? Like 284 to
Yeah.
40 is definitely making an impact, and we're in the process of measuring it right now. You handled that really well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And just take a look at some of the other metrics here, where like instead of 50 days in the new stage, what does that say, Rob? How many? Does that say 38 days, or does that say 38 hours?
Oh my God, I did not. Yeah, it does say hours. Holy
Do I still
Holy
want?
shit! I can cuss. We'll blur it out later. I thought that said days, so that's 1.5
No.
days as opposed to 50.
Exactly. Now, do I want to get that number lower? Absolutely. Let's get that number lower. But progress is progress. Change doesn't happen overnight, right? You're not going to lose 200 pounds in a day. And there's very unorthodox ways to do that. But typically, it's not going to happen overnight. So in a matter of a quarter, going down that much, I'm excited to see what else we can make happen.
My uncle Seamus actually did lose 175 pounds in a day. He had a gallstone cluster removed. It changed his life. But yeah, it doesn't
Really
happen. No, that's a joke. So yeah, what else do you? So this is great. Is it any other metrics,
Yeah.
any other findings from this in the Prezi?
Sure is. So we actually created a dashboard that I will go into now, and you can actually, Rob, you zoom in. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. So this is just some of the metrics. Again, for client anonymity, I'm not going to show like the dashboard with their name on it or anything like that. But what you can see here is tickets active in each stage, average time to close by rep, open tickets by implementation specialist, how many new tickets are in there. And there's a bunch of other ones where we're now starting to get more and more insight into. I even have reports based on how many days each ticket is in. For example, like how many tickets are in the new pipeline for over 5 days, right? How many tickets are in this pipeline for over X amount of days? And that's just all dependent on like how many days they should be in there. And then we can start to find insight of like, why is it staying in this ticket pipeline for so long? Why are there 15 tickets in setup for 3 weeks? And we can start to look at those reports and actualize that data. But that's pretty much some of the stuff I'm showing. Now, I will say one of my favorite quotes from the department head. She comes to me and she goes, Christian, we got to talk. And I said, yeah, what's going on? And she goes, the implementation specialist team is worried that they're going to miss a step in the process. Because as you could see in that map, I was really defining how those processes function on a day-to-day basis, right? There are tasks that you have to complete before you move on to the next one. And the automation won't continue unless you complete that task. It's forcing them to add all of the necessary information and take all the necessary steps. So
that's another key point. You just mentioned that, like, why,
Yeah.
how much time are they supposed to be in here? 5 out, whatever that number is. And then any derivation from that requires new data capturing, like new data points, right? That's when you start to list out and build these guardrails and other process rules that help guide that back to 38 hours or less.
Exactly. And they were like, it's not taking us a lot longer to do things. I'm like, that's great. It shouldn't, because you're just clicking off a task and doing your normal thing. You're just being reminded to do that. But their concern was that they are afraid they're going to miss a step. And my response, as New Englander as it gets, was good. Let them fear that.
Good. Like you guys
I have the
refer to each
bedside
other
manner of a cinder block.
Yeah, it's better than you give it credit for. Is it true? This is off topic, beyond off topic, but is it true that mass hole is a common New Englander expression for like bad drivers? Or
Yeah.
learn something new every single day. keep going. I know
I'm
we're
one
getting
of them.
close to time here, and we
Um,
want to open it up for a Sprocketeer hotline guest. We may have to end the show a little bit differently once
man.
once your presentation of all this amazing data finishes.
Right on. Yeah, no. So really, the last part was just she laughed when I said they should be scared. Pretty much, I'm like, that means they're focusing on it. That means they're actually focused on following the process. And if we can't follow, one of the biggest things in RevOps, if you can't create a repeatable process that drives actionable insights, what are you doing? And that's how I live my daily life. Is if I can't create something to be followed time and time again, it's not efficient. Their implementation specialists are probably saving time now that they have all of this, because they know exactly what they're supposed to do every step of the way. And there's so much more process adherement rules that we're going through right now. We just redeveloped their QBR sequence. They were tracking QBRs in Excel. Guess where it is now? HubSpot. And we're just going through a lot of different process changes and just getting people trained up to continue doing more in HubSpot. And that's what RP is all about. It's just enabling people to do better and be better.
You're a gentleman and a
time.
scholar, and your beard is amazing. I'm going to open up the Sprocketeer hotline for calls. Is anybody out there? Let's open it up real quick. What are you doing here?
Oh, my manager.
We have Rashida. That sounds like it doesn't bode well, but Rashida from RP is manager, and she's joined the call from the hotline. You got some explaining to do, sir. Rashida, how are you, by the way, before you eviscerate Christian on this show?
I'm fantastic. I was actually just watching the video that you created a few months ago. HubSpot is a CRM, the Shrek video, and I was enjoying myself. So I thought, and I heard
the Shrek video is great.
Yeah.
So you didn't have any questions necessarily. You just wanted to come and throw some platitudes at me. And I appreciate that. We can use the Sprocketeer hotline for that all day long. And I can't sign autographs. It's contractual. But if I could, you'd be one of the first to get one.
I do have a question, though. The question I want to ask is, since inbound is coming up, what do you recommend HubSpot users should do at inbound? Like, how can they make use of the community to get the most out of understanding, are they using HubSpot to their full potential or not? So if you can answer in terms of sessions, in terms of collaborating with each other, meeting the right people. But if you had to give somebody an advice on, hey, if you're a HubSpot user and if you're attending inbound, do this so that you can understand whether you're using HubSpot to its full potential or not. Sorry, long question.
Man, that's a good question, though. So I will say this. I've never personally attended inbound. I've been to a couple of Sprocketeer events because I live in the area, and that's actually how I met a lot of the folks at RevPartners, including the man in the orange jacket.
Great story.
Great story for a later date. But I would recommend, I think, as someone who loves to talk to people, everybody at inbound, when I was at the Sprocketeer events, so friendly, and you can just get into a conversation with pretty much anyone. Yes, you can attend all these helpful events, but inbound is not only about attending conferences and getting talked at, but it's about collaborating with other people in the HubSpot ecosystem and allowing that time to say, hey, curious about what you did to solve this problem. Here's what I'm trying to do, and going to different booths. And if there are talks happening about a certain thing, say it's more about utilizing Service Hub or utilizing a different hub for one of the talks, talk to the people in that room. See what they're doing, see what they learned from it and what they picked up. But really, I feel the most I've learned at RP and just in my time of using HubSpot is collaborating with other people in and outside of HubSpot. And it's a big thing also with the Sprocketeer community and what that's for. And shout out Cam Collins for really revamping that.
I got to get him on here too. That's a great answer. Mine was a lot shorter and more philosophical, but it's be childlike. Like if you're using HubSpot or in a situation where you're supposed to be the expert, it's not possible to keep up with all of the updates and new functionality and new players in the ecosystem without leaning into ignorance. Anyone that says otherwise is lying to you. So if you're more childlike being, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to stick your hand up. Don't be afraid to look dumb whenever something happens and you don't know all of it already. There's so much happening both with the tool, the platform, the CRM suite, and then everybody who's in the ecosystem. You just need to, if you're a HubSpot user at inbound, I would arrive as if you've never used HubSpot. That's almost the level of update and the different functionality that they're rolling out on a weekly basis. Rashida, thank you for the Sprocketeer Hotline session join. That's all I had for the rest of the show. Do we want to go out here with the orange list? Christian, do you have time for that?
The orange list.
We'll do it. Stand by. I'm looking at a list, Christian, a list of, and Rashida, you're on here too. You hopped in. I'm looking at a list of albums that have sold more than 40 million copies. You're going to give me as many of them as you can before you get one wrong, and you cannot use your computer to Google it, Rashida. I see your glasses reflecting your Google search right now. We'll start with Christian since Rashida was on Bing or Google, whatever. Give me top album for this.
Do I? God. Oh,
3
man.
seconds,
You're
Christian.
going to laugh. As Beatles, White Album, maybe.
Beatles I don't think this is a very good list. It's not on here, but that doesn't seem popular. It doesn't seem possible. Maybe this is just rock. Let's do the top 10 rock albums ever. Number 1 is Thriller.
Whatever.
And you can go down from there.
Okay,
so in the Thriller Michael Jackson realm. Music is your thing,
God.
right?
This is embarrassing.
Are you a consumer of music or a creator more? I feel like you're more on the creator side.
You will laugh at this. I barely remember the lyrics I write to my own songs. My remembrance of
I don't
albums,
know mine, and I do this professionally sometimes. I create songs all the time and have no idea what
I don't know album names. I can listen to a song and play it back almost immediately. Like, I'm very ear trained, but like album names, forget about it. It is the funniest thing with me. I can't remember the name of a song or an album.
That's disappointing. Hey, how about this? Sustain every other part of this show, improve your musical knowledge. Rashida, do you want to chime in with one? You got to be able to do better than Christian, right? There's 10 that have over 40 million copies sold.
I'm not even going to try.
This has been the Orange Network. I'm your host, Rob, the mayor of Inbound. And what I think is important to remember here is that we are human beings, not human doers. And although Christian and Rashida are both fabulous strategists, Christian, not a very good consumer of music, although he produces it. That's all. We'll see you next time. And thanks for watching. Rashida, thanks for hopping on.